So I just wanted to make sure that for this presentation, this was a somewhat of a collaboration partnership that we have started with the SMSU First People Center. I'm from the Career Center. My name is Denise Perez-Flores. I'm one of the career counselors, and with our we have a lot of partnerships we've grown across the campus, and I'm hoping that this partnership will continue to grow and we can offer these types of workshops to certain groups of students on campus. And I wanted to make sure that when I titled this here, I used the First People Center's language from their own flyers, and also I kind of threw some colors in there to kind of match the flyer a little bit. That was a nice little touch. That is my email address right there. It's Denise Perez-Flores at CSUSB.edu, and that's where you would be able to reach me the easiest and the quickest. Towards the end of the presentation, of course, I'm going to let you know about some of the Career Center services, just so you students out there are aware of how we can help you during this time, and of course during your time as a CSUSB student, and of course your time as an alumni as well. So let me jump into the presentation a little bit here. So this is a little overview of what we typically would cover in this presentation. I did take out a few slides because of what this one was focused on was primarily social media, do's and don'ts. Did not put a whole lot of the networking piece in here, which sometimes I will cover, but we may talk about it just a little bit. So we're focused on, what does your presence look like online? And like someone mentioned before we started here today, we're more and more on social media now. And so I'm a perfect example of, having that professional social media presence and having that personal social media presence. And I just recently created a new Instagram account that was a professional account, and I started utilizing it for the purpose of connecting and engaging with students more. And also our Career Center is also using that live option in Instagram. And I was thinking to myself, I think I want to use a professional account rather than my personal account, just so if students want to follow me, they can follow me and I can connect with them and follow them as well without that personal, piece getting kind of mixed up with the professional piece. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on. But we want to just, I'm not a social media guru or nor am I a networking guru or anything like that. But I've just read some things, I've seen some things, and I like to help make the connection between what I've seen and what I've read into like more of a realistic everyday situation and scenario for students, so they can kind of have an understanding of what this information means and how they can apply it to themselves and their life. So social media do's and don'ts. We'll get started on that. So what is social media? And this is a kind of a piece here that I want to have you jump in on. If you want to go ahead in that chat box, type in what you think social media means to you or what you think social media is. And I'll kind of wait for some of those responses to come through to interact with you all. A way to stay connected to people all over. Definitely, especially now that it's amazing how connected we can be to people all over the world through the internet and through social media, for sure. Virtual communication. I think that we're all building our skill set with this technology piece. Going virtual, a platform. Yes, it is definitely a platform, and there's different platforms, and we'll talk about that. And yes, also a way to advertise yourself and your business, which a lot of people have already been using, and they're probably going to be using this even more in that way, because they know a lot of people probably are now becoming more active on social media because of everything that's going on. Sharing ideas or thoughts. And it's definitely a place where you can do that as well, for sure. So thank you for sharing that. I'll kind of pull up some of the things that I found. So interactive online technologies, those platforms, right, where we can interact with each other in different ways. Whoops. Facilitates the creation and sharing of information, like someone said, sharing information, ideas, and then the career interest piece comes in there because, of course, with there being, you having that presence online, that career piece comes in. Knowledge at the click of a button. Knowledge at the click of a button, yes. You can connect with people who are professionals, and that can help you with your career readiness and career development. So it's definitely a great tool for that process. Then we have virtual communities and networks, and it's really interesting when I think about that word network, because remember when I was an undergraduate student and I was at Cal State Fullerton, I never connected with a career center. I never got involved on campus. And when I ever heard the word networking, or I wasn't really involved like online very much, so I was kind of staying away from all those things. And I kind of like was like, oh, I don't really want to connect. I don't want to network. I thought it was like a mingling thing, right? And then becoming a career counselor and stepping into universities and realizing, oh, I was doing this all along. I just didn't have this name for it. So networking is something that you do online and in person, and it's a connection you make with people. But the word can sometimes be misleading or just kind of confusing. But we won't go into networking too much today, but we'll talk about more of the social media platforms and usage. So of course there's the social and professional, and there's some platforms that are more social. So if you would like to participate again here, go ahead and list out some of those platforms that you think they might be used for social and professional usage.
Well, there are plenty of obvious ones. I just learned this past week about one called Discord.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never heard of it before. And doing a little research on it, it's a way of actually blogging, but with having a very narrow, cultivated group. It seemed very interesting. I haven't really done much with it, but that is one that I recently learned about.
Yeah, and I just see Andy down here, Microsoft Teams. She said it's like Microsoft Teams, which we use in our office as well to stay connected to each other. And there's a lot of different functions on there. You could even share screens and do like these types of meetings. So we've been using that, and I really like that functionality on there. But I'll have to check that one Discord out. I know the Instagram, Facebook, those are real typical. And one that I don't see coming up from the list here, and maybe I didn't prompt it in the right way, but social and or professional kind of, or can be used for both, or just one or versus the other. But LinkedIn, there you go, there's LinkedIn right there. So it's not necessarily created, I think, for the social aspect, but there's a social aspect that can come from it, I think, because there's a professional piece, but then you could potentially, at least in the way I see it, when I think social, I think like friendships or relationships, in a sense of, building those relationships in a beyond professional relationships. And if you're using it as, you're connected to different groups or organizations or associations, there might be that piece that comes in there, but definitely it would be more of a professional site for sure. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my slides. So Facebook, of course, I think that Facebook is definitely more social, but I have seen people using it in a professional way. We do have a Facebook page as well. Then we have Twitter, of course. I actually am not a Twitter user. I think it popped up on my phone when I first got one of those, fancier cell phones as an app, but I've never really got into it. But I know that it's very widely used in a professional setting, but also I see people using it for, other reasons. But then of course, there's LinkedIn. It's more professional. We're always plugging LinkedIn. It's, one of the most widely used, platforms in the professional sense. And it's a global too, right? And then Handshake, of course. Handshake is something everyone would know about, but of course for CSUSB students, we always want to plug that. It's like a cross between LinkedIn and Facebook, for me at least, is how I see it. Because you can get recruited from there, you can use it as that tool, professional sense, but then you can also have it where you can connect with other people. So it does look more like a professional account, but there's those other reasons that students may use it for. And then we have, of course, the more social than professional sites, right? We've got Pinterest, Google Plus, there's Instagram, but I do see Instagram becoming more and more leading in towards that professional type of realm. more so now, especially because everything that's going on. And TikTok, I just learned about that because I was reading something about one of the Kardashian daughter's sons TikTok account or something. He made some video. It was really funny, like article. And then I see people making videos, they're dancing on there. So I guess it's another one that people are using. And then I think I had Snapchat, that one too. And that's one that I've never used before, but I see people using it. And I guess more of the high school students, maybe junior high students, and of course a lot of our college students are using these accounts.
I think, Denise, if I may add,
Yeah.
I've been on LinkedIn for several years now, and just observing it's changing. It's definitely professional, but just seeing a lot more folks use it similar to Facebook and Instagram in a way, but sharing their professional life a little bit more through photos.
Yeah.
That's been fascinating to watch.
You know, it's really interesting you're just bringing that up. I noticed that too. I'll go on there and I'll go on there more than I'll go on any other account. I just like hit my little app because there's an app for all these, right? Most of them. And I'll go, oh, wow, people are sharing stuff that I think is more about their personal side of themselves, or maybe their values kind of, and their interests, and kind of throwing them in there into their professional world, like you're mentioning. And I'm always like wondering, is this going to turn into a Facebook thing now with this feed? You know, is it going to look like that? But yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, definitely. I've noticed that too. So what is the purpose of having a professional social media account? You know, why do we even use these things? And let me go back real quick. So if you want to put some things in the chat there of some of the reasons why you think that we have these, why we use them, why they're important. Go ahead and put some responses there in the chat. Should we have two separate accounts? Well, I made mine two separate accounts. It's interesting too that you even say that, should we have two separate accounts? I feel like I'm one of those like, well, it depends on this, or it depends on that, or it depends on you. So what you're thinking for yourself, should I do this or should I not? And for me, I do have coworkers, for example, for Instagram, they didn't make another account. They kept their same, account. They have their privacy settings up so they can still keep themselves private, but then they still use that one account for different things like going live on Instagram for our Career Center. So I think that would be one of those things for you to see what the value would be by having one and or both, or having two, and which would be the purpose, I guess, for that, talking to people who are doing what you would like to do in the future. Definitely something that we always talk about when we do this presentation in particular, or the networking presentation in particular, using those platforms to connect with people who may be doing something that you may want to do. Like if you want to be a career counselor and you're like, hey, I saw you on that LinkedIn, like, and I'm thinking about asking you if we can do an informational interview. Can I connect with you? So using these sites for those reasons, I think is something that definitely we're promoting more, and getting students to understand what that means and how to do that. Yes, current events. Yes, definitely. I'm noticing that Instagram's blowing up. Ever since I got the professional account and I'm following, and people are following me, I'm seeing all kinds of stuff that I hadn't seen before when I was on my personal account. Even if I was following stuff before that was more professional related. So definitely being able to stay involved and be up to date with what's going on. It definitely the social media, the professional and social media, both accounts are working in that way.
I put to stay connected to students, and I'm referring more to like senior administration in universities. I've noticed across different campuses, like vice presidents or presidents will have their own professional account and actively engage with students on there, just because they're a bit more removed from students. And so I've started noticing that.
Yeah, I think I've noticed the same thing too. A lot of new accounts popping up too. So let me just kind of go down the list here. Of course, promoting, marketing yourself, showcasing your professional brand. That language right there, professional brand, another one of those, brand is another one of the words that I used to stay away from, but it's not as much as like a brand, but more of like, you know, what do you want people to see? What are you trying to promote yourself as? You know, how are you trying to do that? Then we have connect with professionals, colleagues, and peers, and we kind of mentioned that. Exploring your career interest. A lot of times I'll mention to students, especially when they go onto LinkedIn, is that they can learn a lot about what their what alumni are doing in their after they graduate, by looking at, you know, who graduated with, you know, a business degree in a concentration in marketing, where are they working, what are their job titles, what have they done in their previous experience to even get to where they're at. And you can use LinkedIn for that purpose to kind of, you know, learn a lot about different pathways based on people who, you know, graduated from your institution with a similar degree. So that's something that we always mention as well. Research companies, organizations, because a lot of companies, organizations have these accounts as well. And you can learn a lot about these companies, organizations through these accounts that are out there for you to utilize these platforms. And then share accomplishments, career moves, and career interests. You know, when we have positions open for center, for example, and I know there's a lot of people that are in career services that I'm connected to, I will go out there and promote our opportunities, and they can learn about opportunities because I have that connection to them. So it's definitely something that allows us to connect in that way and learn about things that we might not be able to learn about if we weren't connected. Then professional development, joining groups, following news, interests, inspirational leaders, and learning about and sharing opportunities and knowledge, of course. And then searching and applying and getting recruited for jobs and internships. So this is another reason why we would even use these sites. Then of course, asking questions, sharing content. There is so much going on, you know, on these sites and things that you can do. And I think one of the things I think about is making sure that you're active. You know, you can make the account, but if you're not using it, sometimes it's not going to really benefit you. So making sure that if you do have one of these professional accounts, that you're using it and you're actively using it, so you can reap some of the benefits from the platform. So why is it important to have a clean social media presence? So we get into those do's and don'ts. What does your presence look like? This was from a slide share that I found on LinkedIn, facts about social media usage and recruitment. Based on the data that was in this slide share, 94% of recruiters use or plan to use social media for recruiting. So I have a few more of these types of infographics to show you some of the reasons why you would want to have a clean account. If they are recruiting at a very high percentage, and the percentage, you know, may be different based on different data that was collected, but if the percentage is really high, then you'd want to make sure that you have that social media account clean. And we'll talk about what that means in a little bit. 30% of all Google searches, about 300 million per month, are employment related. So another reason why you'd want to have a clean presence. Employers who used social media to hire found a 49% improvement in candidate quality. And then 51% of current employees are either actively seeking or open to a new job. So these are some of the things that to keep in mind when you're thinking about, okay, well, we'll talk about what a clean presence is, but even to have that presence and how it can impact you when it comes to your career and jobs and work. Let me see, there's something in the chat here. Yeah, and thank you, Amanda, for sharing that. It's definitely something that I'll touch on, because there's what I've come across when I've done this presentation on campus is, you know, not all the time are we all thinking about everything that could happen, right? Not everyone's like a forecaster, or I'm someone who will think about like worst case scenario and best case scenario. I'll think about all those scenarios that could play out, but not everyone thinks that way. You could literally put up one picture or make one comment, and that could detrimentally affect you in a really big way, and but you maybe didn't even think that until afterwards, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that too. Then we got digging for digital dirt. So when researching candidates online, employers say that they're looking for the following. So these are some of the things that they're looking for that you want to make sure you are putting out there. That could be part of your, you know, clean presence. information that supports your qualifications. If you're a candidate that you even have, do you even have an online persona? I came across this scenario for myself when I was in grad school. I applied for an internship at UC Davis in their career center, and I wasn't really that active on LinkedIn, but I had an account. And then right away, the day after I submitted my application, the director and the assistant director and one of the career advisors were in there looking at my LinkedIn account, and I knew that because I saw that they looked. And I was like, oh no, I better get my account cleaned up, and I better make sure that I have everything accurate. And I started thinking about all these things that they saw or didn't see off of my profile. So that was my first experience with learning about needing to make sure my profile was updated. What are other people posting about the candidate? So if you depending on your presence and people are tagging you in different things, maybe your presence looks clean, but then someone tagged you in some picture or some comment, and then somebody might see another side of you, right? And then reasons not to hire the candidate. They might be looking at your profile on these platforms to see why they shouldn't hire you, especially if they gotta go through hundreds of thousands of applications. What could they do to use against you? Say, oh, I saw this picture of them, I don't think we should hire them. Let's put them in the no pile. So some of the things that could happen. Let's see. I have a colleague who lost an amazing job due to comments made on Twitter and Facebook. There we go. Perfect example. That's really sad. But and it's like a real situation right there. That's sad to hear though. Top 5 reasons employers pass on applicants due to social media posts. So the top 5 types of content that are a turn off to employers. So some of these things in my mind, I think sometimes will seem like common sense to me, but sometimes it's like, well, it depends on who you are and how you see things. So a provocative or inappropriate photograph or videos or information about, sorry, the background, I have a train going by, if you can hear that, sorry. Information about candidates drinking or using drugs, discriminatory comments about race, religion, gender, stuff like that. Candidate about bad mouth previous company or fellow employee. I think that's one that I would probably see as a general thing. Oh, I hate my boss, or this happened at work. I know my mom, I try to tell her to stay off of Facebook and stop putting stuff up, but she'll just go on a rant because she's frustrated, and then she thinks about it later. Oh, I probably shouldn't have put that up. Poor communication skills, that's something that they might see based on how you're writing something, how you're demonstrating something, sharing something. So these are some things that employers may be picking up on and kind of pushing you aside because of. And then social media mistakes. Most common social media mistakes professionals make that reduce their chances of being hired. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what those employers are kind of looking for to kind of push you aside. But there's just those things that you probably shouldn't do. So these are a lot of the don'ts right here that are kind of popping up, like off of this one and the previous one. Things that you might not want to do, and you should think a little bit more about what you're doing online before you do it. So of course, these are some of the do's, right? So understand the purpose of the media. If I'm creating those 2 separate accounts, I have the 2 Instagram accounts. What is the purpose of me having that? I know we're disconnected right now physically from the campus, and I wanted to be more connected. So I purposely made that account so I can connect more to the students. And even a student, my mentee, one of my mentees, she graduated already, but she was on Instagram, and then she started following me, and I was like, oh, I started following her, and then we are doing the, what is it, DM, direct message? Is that what that is? I'm not too hip on the language here. Okay, thank you. We were like, oh, I'm like, hey, I have appointments right now. I have a lot of openings. Do you want to schedule something? She's like, oh yeah, I do, and she right away made an appointment. So I was kind of like, oh, I saw value in that, what I'm doing to connect more, and students could maybe feel comfortable because that's maybe their comfort zone, being on Instagram, and I can connect with them and kind of prompt them and say, hey, you want to make an appointment? We can meet, through Zoom, and talk about your career. Provide intelligent comments, critical thinking, things that you would want to do. How do you want to be perceived? How are you writing your comments? What kind of comments are you making? and really thinking about that before you do that. Then we have photos are good as long as they're appropriate. Think professionalism, and things that may not be professional might include those inappropriate things that like one of the slides before this said risque photos. If you're out at the beach in Miami on, spring break and you're having some drinks and you're at a party, I don't know if that's, necessarily professional, necessarily for, these professional platforms. So things like that. And like I said, it's about how, you perceive yourself, but then others perceive you, and you don't always know how others are going to perceive you. So it's a little tricky sometimes. And I'll go through some questions for you to ask yourself to make you think about, things that you can ask yourself before you do something, just in case you're not sure, what would be appropriate and what wouldn't be. Write well. Of course, communication is one of the top skills that employers are looking for. And so being able to write well and showcase that you have very good communication skills in that form, then that may make you look, really good to an employer, and to, of course, others, professionals as well. Someone put a little message here. Does depend on what your profession is. I was thinking that as well when I was saying about the drink and the bathing suit and all that. I would say that is also something to take into consideration, because I see all kinds of different types of, professionals out there, or people using their platform for different reasons. So I think knowing what your purpose is for your platform and your presence and your audience, I think that would be a good thing to keep in mind for sure. Thank you for sharing that. And just your security settings, you're kind of showing that you have that, learn what those are and how to adjust them on your platforms, so you can be more, have more privacy if you want that, or less, depending on yourself and how you would like to manage your own profiles. And then what should you not do? So these are some of those don'ts. You should probably not assume that connections like/know you. I have a funny story. There was this lady on LinkedIn, this woman, I believe she's in the UK. She is part of, she's a psychotherapist, and she's part of mental health community. And I think she's connected to a few people that I'm connected to. And so she added me, or she, linked me, or she wanted me to add her. And so we connected. I said, okay, yeah, I read her background. I was like, okay, she said some interesting stuff. Okay, I'll connect with her. And I was scrolling to her page and I accidentally endorsed her on a skill that people were endorsing her on. And so then she messaged me last night and said, thank you for the endorsement. And I was like, how do I respond to this? And I said, I actually clicked on it accidentally. I don't know you professionally or personally, but it looks like you had a lot of people endorsing you. So maybe you are probably, really skilled in that area. She said, well, thanks anyways. So I just left it on there, but I guess she didn't even look to see how we knew each other or anything. She's just like, oh, cool, I got an endorsement. And I didn't endorse her, but it was an accident, but I could have, right? But don't always assume that connections like or know you, just because of maybe you feel that way, maybe they might not. But that's where it can get a little complicated, right? With building those relationships. Don't confuse professional outreach with personal. I've had people on LinkedIn message me and say weird things, send me weird messages that were very inappropriate. And on that side, I thought I was a little more safe and had more privacy, and I thought it was more, people would know that that's a professional site, but it doesn't stop people from doing what they want to do. But definitely it's something to keep in mind that maybe you should not do towards other people. And don't rant. I used that word earlier when I was speaking about my mom. When I think about rant, I think about a conversation I had this morning with my coworker on the phone when I'm frustrated about something, and when I go on and on and on about something. It's something that people might do. They might go on to this big paragraph of how they're mad about this, or they don't like that, or getting really passionate about a certain topic area. Of course, that happens. but a social media profile or your presence online and your professional profile, your platform should probably not be a place for you to do that, or it's not recommended at least. Don't post questionable photos anywhere. And like I said, I'll go into some questions that you can ask yourself before you post something that might get you thinking about how you can decide if something is appropriate or not for yourself, right? And then don't tag or be tagged, monitor that. Like I mentioned, you don't know what people are going to tag you in. And if it's something that is a picture or it could be a posting that you might not want to be tagged with or affiliated with. So check your settings to see how you can, untag yourself and not have someone automatically do that. And then this one right here, when I did this presentation in person, I did have a student ask me about like avoiding political posts. They asked me, well, what if I want to, voice my opinion about a political topic or something? And I told them, I will not tell anybody what to do or what not to do. This is something that it's recommended that you don't do because of the repercussions that could potentially come from something. And then I also did the flip side of that, where I said, if someone does not like your views and they are against that, maybe you don't want to work for someone like that if you're talking about in the job or career sense, or vice versa. Maybe there's a company or organization that you don't agree with as well, and maybe they're kind of connected to a certain political arena. So that one's more of a personal kind of decision. I think all of these are, but that one in particular, we all have our values and our interests, and so I don't think that we should always kind of damper those down, but sometimes it might be necessary, at least to make sure that you are going to present yourself in a way that is going to be professional and also not necessarily attractive, but to get you to a place that you want to be, especially if you're using it for a career purpose. And then avoiding engaging in arguments, going back and forth with people about something could get heated. There could be a lot of rants. There could be some language that's not very appropriate, especially if people are angry about something. So try to stay out of those things. And yeah, so this is some of the some pictures there as examples. How do you all see these pictures? If you think about as an employer, if you were an employer, how would you see these pictures? Would you find them in a positive light? Would you find them in a negative light? Would you find them appropriate, inappropriate? What do you all think about these? Now, if you looked at the pictures and you thought about just your personal social media profile and your friends, would you think about how would you see them? Would you see them differently? Yeah, they could be considered like, oh, this is some old pictures someone forgot to take down. Yeah, and it definitely, you might see your friends, or you might see pictures like this on your more personal platforms, and they might not even seem like anything, right? Sometimes we have to separate those parts of ourselves and our lives, right, to keep that for different reasons. So definitely the pictures of supposedly, based on what I've found, that these pictures would be inappropriate. As a friend, I would laugh. As a parent, I would be worried. Did someone have to say something? Jacob?
I was just gonna say, even on personal, so when I was finishing undergrad, I studied to be a Spanish teacher, and so secondary education in Spanish, even right before I started student teaching, or even we had to do observations in the classroom. One of the presentations that I went to, they talked about social media presence because it was starting to be, Facebook was the big thing, right? Facebook had just started. And so I cleaned all of my personal, even because you never know what students, because I taught high school, students could find on social media, and that could be plastered on the in their own personal groups or something like that. So even not even just professional but personal stuff I had to clear, just based on the profession, the teaching profession.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that even going back to, I think what Mike had said earlier, depending on your profession, depending on, what kind of work you do and where you work, if I worked for a nightclub and And I might not worry as much about that versus like if I work for a high school and I'm a teacher, depending on, you know, what profession you're in and what you're doing, and how that could be perceived, I guess. Yeah. So poor communication skills, the perception and impact. So based on what you're posting, how you're posting it, I think in the other, let me just get it on my screen real quick so I can see these. Even like how my boss was such a monster this morning, feeling annoyed. Will your boss see that? Will your coworkers see that? How will they perceive that? You know, how could they get passed around the office? And the next thing you know, you're getting called in and you're getting a warning. These things happen, and definitely, like, oh no, definitely can affect you. I remember, this doesn't have to do with employment, but I was a youth mentor, case manager for foster youth that were in a high school and junior high. And one of the high school students, I don't remember how I stumbled upon her Instagram, but she had a picture of herself smoking marijuana, and all her pictures were open and visible. And I know I was helping her with planning for life after high school and making sure that, you know, helping her to be more successful and, you know, prepare for that future. And I was a little like caught off guard by it. I felt like I didn't know how I should talk to her about it, because it's something that, you know, even made me look at her differently. And I didn't even think that she did stuff like that, where it was impacting her academics, but I had no idea. So there's different things like that. It's just our perceptions of things, and how we're putting ourselves out there. You know, we're going to be portrayed different ways, and so I guess it's like for us to take control of that before it takes control of us by someone else. I think is probably something to keep in mind. But it can be negative, inappropriate, to cause you to lose out on professional opportunities or other opportunities. So for this part of the activity, where are you? What comes up if you Google your name? How clean are your social media sites? Go ahead and if you're able to, go ahead and Google yourself and kind of share out with what you see when you do that.
Denise, if I may chime in on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back actually from the last slide, I had a personal experience back in like 06 or 07 when my sister started putting family dirt out in the internet.
Oh.
My sister has a bit of a mental issue, but we can never get her to go seek help. And she lives in another state. And a colleague of mine brought it to my attention. So what I did is I shut down my Facebook account. And I did not get on for almost 7 more years after that.
Wow.
And I totally started from scratch. But then what I did is I used Facebook as well as a few other sites, and that's when I ran for the school board. So I was able to use the internet to run for the school board, which I did win. And it was actually very cost effective. But at the same time, nobody else was doing what I was doing without paying for professional websites, etc. So I used Wix to create my own. I even had a MySpace account. You'd be surprised at how many people in 2014 were still using MySpace, as well as Facebook. And I didn't really do much with my LinkedIn, but I got no traffic on it. So I can say that if you have a fairly positive, sunny sales pitch, there's little negativity that's going to arise in your social media. And the other thing, getting to what you're saying now is, Google yourself. I've heard this one for some years. When I was working with training in between 2015, 2017 for CTA, we would always tell teachers that Google yourself on a regular basis and see what's out there. And the only thing that really shows up negative under my name is on a site called Rate My Professors. And I've got 17 years of negative comments by students. And, I mean, so far I've never had a situation where anybody's held me accountable to it, where anybody would say anything to my face. But of course I would probably not want to work for a school that actually used that as an objective site. So there's that trade-off. The students call me a grammar Nazi, which, I don't have a real problem with, because if they're missing commas, they need to go back and rewrite their paper. But at the same time, again, I'm no longer teaching, but at the same time, do we really want to have, as an employer, somebody that's going to use a rant and rave site like that as the basis for their evaluation of you?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that site too, because I didn't even think about mentioning any of those sites, because that's definitely something that will pop up when you're getting, you're Googling yourself, or someone's going to Google you. And that's, I think, a lot of times people will go straight to Google, type in someone's name. I know that we're having the forum coming up for our executive director for the Career Center, and you type in someone's name and Google them and see who people are, and you'd be surprised what pops up. And I don't know how it works for a website like that. If that's something that you could contact the site itself and the host and see if that's something that could be changed, or not changed, but taken down. I'm not sure how that works, but
the only thing that ever came up, I was accused, I'd say about 2011, with a lot of I was attacked with a lot of racial based language, and that was taken down by the website itself.
Okay.
I didn't have to actually do anything. It was like up one day and then gone another.
That's good.
But the only thing that I've seen on it, and there's also the Rate My Teachers for the K-12s. The only thing I've seen on it is that the teacher has the opportunity to challenge the statement, but they won't take one down unless it actually fulfills a legal slander.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only downside to that.
And two, I was thinking right now, a site like that, is that something that a professor actually will create their profile on there, or is something that a student will, you know what I mean? Like how do you even get into that?
Yeah, the student, if the student will, it's student driven. So the student contacts the website and says, I'm at this college and this is my teacher and this is the class.
Yeah.
And this is when I took it, and this is either a good teacher, this is a bad teacher, this is my comment.
Yeah. And I was thinking about, it's kind of like a bit like the Better Business Bureau, or like reviews that people put up on Yelp and stuff like that, where you kind of don't have necessarily control over it unless it's some negative, inappropriate thing that they feel they should take down. Okay.
Yes. And again, as we're as some of our students may be graduating and going on into professional education, the Rate My Teachers page is even more of a Wild West. I mean, I initially I thought over the years that Rate My Professors was pretty bad. And then, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was talking with somebody from a school district at one of our union events, and they had mentioned something. So I went on there looking, oh my gosh, everything was all over the place. And it was almost scary, because some of it I was looking at and thinking, I'm not a lawyer, but that fits the definition of libel.
Yeah, and I like there's even some things like that are outside of our control. Even like and unfortunately, and like unless there's anything you can do about that, I believe there's things that are out of our control sometimes, unfortunately. And I'm sorry that that's happened to you, but definitely something that
there's nothing in there. And I've looked at it, and again, I haven't taught for over 2 years now. But I've looked at it in the past, and I've said to myself, well, there's nothing there that I couldn't defend. This was in the syllabus. They got marked down for it, and he's complaining about it.
Yeah.
So I've it's one of those things where if anybody says anything negative about me, if I can't defend it, then I will do something. Yeah. If I can, then I'm going to do nothing.
And you're bringing up something that could kind of lead into this next slide. Even thinking about like our own reputations, we have control over that. Our own brands. How do we want to appear? And the only way we can, combat certain things is to, put ourselves out there in the best light that possible. And so like how you appear online can directly impact your career for yourself. And of course, there's outside forces that are coming in. Unfortunately, sometimes we can't do anything about that, but we can do something about ourselves. And so there's different things just to bring up real quick. And we're almost at the ending point here. From job offers to college acceptance letters, promotions, and business partnerships, and even first dates, your online professional brand influences your life more than you realize. And we're having few conversations here about this, you know, and how it's impacted us just by being online, just having that online access in general. People look you up online before deciding to work with you, admit you, or even date you, and what they find directly impacts their decision to accept or reject you. This is, I feel like, it's not something that I would say that I always do or think about, but I know that people do this. They will make their decisions based on how you look, how you sound, how you come across, and so then you have to think about, well, how do you want to be perceived? And if someone does not like you or want you based on who you are and how you are perceiving yourself or portraying yourself, then, you know, it's time for you to really think about, like, is something worth it for you or not, whether it's a company or, you know, something else. And then negative content about you online damages not only your reputation, but your earning potential. On the flip side, positive search results and content online can boost it. I thought about someone that I looked up, I think last year for something. I won't go into details about what that was, but I saw that they had over 50 recommendations on LinkedIn from previous and current employees of theirs. And I was like, whoa. And they didn't look like they were recommendations that they necessarily went out and got, but they could have. But the recommendations were just stellar recommendations, really long paragraphs of stuff that were really heartfelt from people that had worked for the person or were currently working for them. And I thought that was really great. It really made me look at them in a positive light. Before you post, ask yourself these questions. So this is kind of getting towards the end. These are things to maybe to help you think about if something's appropriate or not. Do I want my boss, teacher, child, parent to see this? If it's a shared post, a picture, a comment, you might want to think about how would these individuals, because these individuals might be important to you in some aspect of your life, in some way. And so if you put them at the forefront of your mind, that might help you to decide on if you're going to post anything or not. If the idea of someone outside of your immediate friend group reading your post makes you cringe, you might not want to post it. That's something that I had found. So I see something in the chat here. I read too much celebrity news. I always overthink my posts. I always overthink mine too, even my emails when I send them out. Would I do that on TV? Now, maybe you're in your home, you're in your bedroom, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna post this online. But maybe you're not thinking, like, if this, like, you see reality TV shows, right? Stuff that's happening there, everybody's seeing it. They're not seeing you post that, but maybe someone on the web, they're gonna see it. But you're not thinking about that. So would you do that? Would you do it on TV instead of like if there's a picture of you doing something? So instead of posting something on social media, pretend that it's being shared on cable. How does that feel? If the picture that you're putting up there is being broadcasted all over the whole world on TV, would you still feel the same way about it? You know, thinking about that question too. Let's see, I have online aliases that I have used in the past, not tied to my name or identity. Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that's something to keep in mind. Having those alias names. I was just reading a chat comment. Are people going to have a lot to say about this? Is it something that you think is going to strike up controversy or conversation? And then how's the conversation going to go? Is it going to look maybe in a more negative light or in a positive light? Thinking about that. If the answer is yes, you're okay with that. How would you feel if this went viral? If it's going to be spread across, the internet, how would you feel about that? Is this actually funny? We might think something's funny, but the majority, maybe some other people might not. So we got to think about, use that part of yourself, that the empathic, empathy part of yourself. How would someone else see this? How would someone else feel about this? Tap into that if you can, as much as possible to help you think about something before you post it. People tend to get in trouble when they make jokes on social media or if it's taken out of context. If that's what's happening there, then it's something you may want to think about not posting. Do other people need to see this? Is it that important? Is it that funny? Is the picture that cool? So think about, do people actually need to see something that you're going to post up? And the more you post, the greater chances that you'll make a mistake. Be selective about what you post. So I think that there's a fine line and there could be a balance. And I think that might be a good reason to have separate accounts too, because you might want to have that personal friend group that you're using that personal account with, but then you go to the professional group and it's more of your professional life. So people might use those two different platforms for two different reasons. And then, what is your brand? Define your social media voice. What do you stand for, and what do you want people to see and know about you? And go ahead and use the chat there. Or actually, if you want to share out on this one, just because it's more towards the end of the presentation, we have a couple minutes just to wrap up, you making that final statement, about this. What do you want people to see? How do you want to be perceived? What do you stand for?
I guess I would want people to think that I am friendly and dependable and professional. And I do want to be a guidance counselor, so I've been very careful about my social media for a while.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share?
One of the things that if you look at my social media, predominantly, of course, is Facebook. I may repost cartoons, but ones that would be printed in a regular newspaper, mostly based on puns rather than anything else. The other thing that I have quite a few religious posts. And that's probably the only thing that I could think of that somebody might find offensive, because I am religious. But that's the only thing I can really think of. And of course, that's technically protected.
Yeah.
Technically.
And I think that I go to two sides of this whole thing where I'm like, okay, I want to be myself and I want to put myself out there. But then I think about how important is it for me to put, all of myself out there, or just some of myself out there. Like where should I draw the line for myself? And thinking about that. And we never know how someone's going to feel about something or not. We all have our own different opinions and perceptions. So we can't even predict how something's going to come out and how it's going to be perceived. But I guess we can just be more mindful that there may be some strong opinions out there that aren't necessarily for us. They might be for us or against us, right? So I think that I always go to stay true to yourself, be authentic, but also be mindful, I guess, of others as well. Let me go to finish up here. Last things to kind of keep in mind, because the internet is only becoming more connected, the sooner you can learn to keep your personal and professional brand separate might be for the better. Know how you want to be perceived in general, know which social platforms to use, and when you're posting certain content, decide who you should allow as friends on each of the networks and or connections, and then focus on privacy, and then Google yourself every once in a while to kind of keep up on yourself and see what's out there for yourself. And we did a couple of these things, we talked about a couple of these things during the presentation. This is just a slide for any questions, and I'll go into the last couple of slides to wrap up the presentation. Does anybody have any questions? And if not, then I will move on. If you do, you can just put it in the chat there, and I'll go to the next slide here. I'll get to that. Hold on one second, sorry. Oh, thank you. Connect with us virtually. So Career Center has moved to a virtual campus. We're all at our homes. We are still doing the work that we do in the office. I find it not too different, other than we're not connecting in that personal, space, which I really enjoy, meeting students in my office. But we are closed till further notice. But we are available to you Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and there's our phone numbers there for the two campuses, our email, and our website. One of the things that we do have that's new and that just started today, we have a chat bot on our website now. So when you go to our website, the little chat bot pops up in the corner. You can ask the chat bot questions, and if it does not respond to you with your answers that you're looking for, then we will get the notification. So I thought that was kind of cool. It's kind of the perfect timing for us to launch it, because we actually were going to launch that beforehand, but now it's like fully virtual. Now we're kind of like fully virtual. So it's been really great we've been able to transition very easily. Let me go a couple more slides. Our career counseling appointments, we still are meeting with students online and through phone. You still make the appointments in the same process that you used to. You go to your My Coyote, employment opportunities, and then you use your Handshake account to make your appointment. And then for drop-ins, we are only doing phone and online appointments, no drop-ins into a space anymore. We have resume cover letter reviews that are available electronically, so you can just send your documents in an MS Microsoft Word file to careercenter@csusb.edu. For those who are staff that are on here, you can pass that along to your students. We will try to get a turnaround of 2 to 3 days. We have quite a few people working on those, so please have your students send those in, alumni as well. We will be able to provide feedback on those, and they can also make an appointment for those reviews as well. And then of course we have a workshop series, the social media do's and don'ts, and networking one is on there, which is very, it's a little bit longer, a little bit more information. It's a little bit different than this one, but if you already attended this, then you won't need to go to that one, but there's some other workshops there for you. And then our clothing closet is temporarily closed to fuller notice. Of course, we're not there on campus, so we're kind of sad about that, right? But we will be opening that back up once we get back on campus, and it's definitely something that it's one of our most highly utilized services for sure. We still are pushing forward with the internship awards. We will see how that turns out this quarter, but there are opportunities to earn that funding as well. And then this was the survey that the First People Center asked me to post up here for you all. So there is the QR code, and there is a link there to the survey for you. Please provide us. Oh, okay.
In the chat as well. So
there you go. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for putting that in there. I appreciate everybody that attended, and I appreciate you staff that were popped on here. My boss got an email from Handshake earlier this morning or yesterday. She said, "Hey Denise, are all students going to be seeing these emails that we're sending out just to see if students want to attend?" And so she's like, "Oh, this is great, So not only are you promoting it to your students, but all other students can also join in, I'm assuming, if they would like to." So yeah, I think that's all I have for the presentation. I appreciate it. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in here.